Hi, I'm Paul Thorpe, and I'm going to be doing a project where I'm going to be making a new custom steel storm door, screen door for this house. These customers spent a long time looking for a really nice screen door that would be secure, and they just couldn't find anything out there. They have a really beautiful 1920s house. It's pretty much everything's intact, and it's in really great shape. And this is a really big door too. This is 3.5 feet wide, which is a little bigger than a typical front door. We got together and decided we would make a custom steel door with my metal fabricators that would both be secure, so they could leave their front door open, but have this screen door be locked and be secure and nobody could get through the screen, but also have a mesh that would keep all the bugs out, and so they could have lots of ventilation. And you can see that they had to cut a notch here to clear this big loop handle, which is pretty prominent, but we want to save this beautiful old hardware, so with the new door we want to make sure we're forward enough to clear that. I thought that steel rather than wood was the way to go here, and I contacted Blackbird Iron and Design in Seattle, metalworkers whom I had worked with before. I had worked on fence and gate projects with them and asked if we could use that technique for building a screen door. This would mean welding a frame out of steel tubing, welding on steel hinges, and having it mount on some kind of jamb. The customer could then pick out some decorative architectural mesh for the middle panel, and the whole thing would be powder coated. I pitched it to the customer with a rough price and a little drawing, and they said to go ahead and come up with a full design. Todd Harrison, the owner of Blackbird, and I had several issues facing us as we set out. The first was how to hold the decorative mesh in the frame. Todd thought we could sandwich it between two pieces of flat stock that would attach to the frame. The tubing to be used for the frame was 2 inches wide, and the flat stock could be 2 inches wide too, and together that would make the total frame of the door 4 inches, which we both thought was a good width, making it look like a typical door. Another issue was how the door would mount to the house and latch shut. We could build an entire metal frame that the door would sit in, but it would wrap around the wood jamb and we'd lose about 1.5 inches of clearance through the front door. We could also just mount the hinges to the wooden trim on the house, but we would need a small box mounted on the trim on the other side for the door to latch to. Also, if the hinges were mounted to the trim, how would they attach? We could just weld hinges to a piece of angle steel that would get screwed onto the house, but we worried that it would look too rough and unfinished. But if it were to be trimmed down to match the steel frame and we smooth the edges, it would look nicer. I think simpler is usually better, and Todd and I both liked the idea of the door just closing against the wood trim and not having to lose any width by building a metal frame. I then presented drawings of our two designs to the client, and what I found really helped was showing them all the components that the door would be made out of. The customer also agreed the more minimal overlay design looked better and chose that. We then picked out a powder coat color to match their existing trim, and with a final agreement on the overall price for the project, we were ready. So I'm at Blackbird Iron and Design here in Seattle, and they built the frame for the front door, and we've got a nice mid-rail here for stability, and we have a lock box that is welded right in, and that'll take a deadbolt and a lever. And then we have two metal hinges on that panel, and this vertical piece of metal will be the hinge leg that it hangs on, and this piece just gets attached right to the front of the trim on the door. And then this screen door is just going to overlay the trim and close right against everything. And then this is the screen that we've picked out, the design. And it's going to just go right in these two panels, like that. And we wanted to keep everything separate and loose because we want a powder coat, so we want to make sure all surfaces inside and out are coated. And so that way we build all the pieces, and we can take it apart and powder coat everything and then put it back together, and that way it'll be protected from the weather. So here we can see the screen laid in laid on that first layer, and it registers on those little blocks. And this is all going to just drop in there. So this is the other side of that frame that's going to hold that mesh in. And it's just going to sandwich that mesh in between and then get screwed on the frame here with these little fasteners. We got countersinks. Okay, just finishing putting this piece on, and I got the clutch of my drill turned really low so I don't strip that screw out. And that back side of the door is all assembled, and you can see it's all pretty flush. And now I'm ready to template for my bug screen. And I'm just going to use regular aluminum screen. I'm going to have a custom one made, and it'll just get held on with retaining clips in the back and get finished the same color as the steel. But we need a bug screen because this is really for just keeping, people out security-wise, but we got to keep the bugs out too. So now I'm going to make the template for that. So here's my full-size plywood template laid over the metal frame, and the edge of that template represents the edge of the bar of the screen frame. So now we've traced this onto the metal, and they can drill the holes, and I can take this template to my screen guy. Here we can see up close the detailing, and everything's coming out real nice, and the welds here are all finished and sanded, and you can see this layout's even from side to side, which looks really good. Just really great job detailing everything here. And we left a little bit of a gap on the front here that will allow water to weep out. So any water that, especially in the back door, water can sort of fill up in that void there, but it'll just be able to weep out. And again, everything will be powder coated inside, so we should be protected. Okay, we've got these all assembled now, and this is the front. And we also made one for the back door because the customer wanted to be able to have the front and the back door open and have lots of air moving through the house, and also have that security on the back door. And these came out really beautiful. They just did a beautiful job. You can see all the details are real clean, and I think the design looks good. I think this mesh is a really nice design. And I think overall it doesn't feel too massive, and especially when it gets powder coated and finished, the right color, it'll just kind of blend in with the house, and it'll look really good.